Core mechanics. It is a common error to think that the physics in a sports game should be as realistic as possible. The player is not actually running around on the playing field, and the player is not a professional athlete. For both of these reasons, you need to adjust the physics to make the game playable. Even in a highly realistic game, your objective is to provide an enjoyable experience, not a mathematical simulation of nature. The rating system provides the raw data that the physics engine needs to accurately simulate the behavior of the athletes. In most team games, all athletes share one set of ratings, plus specialized ratings that apply only to athletes playing a particular position. Examples of common ratings are speed, agility, weight, acceleration, jumping, endurance, and injury resistance. Examples of specialized ratings are passing strength, passing accuracy, dexterity, and awareness. The play in a sports match can be broken down into states that are defined primarily by the rules and secondarily by the tactics and strategy of the game. After you define the game states, you can start thinking about what the team should do in each state. After that, you then must define exactly how the athlete is to perform that role. Most sports games include fidgets, short animations in which the athlete shifts their weight, stretches their arms, or makes some other neutral action every few seconds. Injuries are a sad but common side effect of sports, and serious simulations take them into account. Most sports games allow the players to turn off injuries if they don't like the effect that injuries have on the game. A lot of sports games limit injuries to cases of some kind of collision, ordinarily between two athletes. You can also decide which part of the body sustains the injury and the length of time for which it will disable the athlete. Arcade mode makes the game more exciting at the expense of realism. Simulation mode makes it a more accurate simulation of the real sport at some expense of fun. To implement arcade mode, you have to decide what sort of changes to the real game would make it more exciting. If you want your game to have both arcade and simulation modes, start with the serious simulation first and then create the adjustments that make it arcade-like. The simplest way to simulate matches automatically is to let the computer play out the match in computer versus computer mode and record the results. Many games fake it. In effect, they roll dice to generate game scores. If you choose this approach, you will need to devise a suitable algorithm for generating point values. Unfortunately, the dice rolling technique doesn't generate any statistics other than the scores themselves. Considerable debate has raged over the years about whether to build a home field advantage into sports games. Although the home field advantage is statistically significant in a number of sports, it's better not to build it into the mechanics of the game. If you feel you must simulate home field advantage, the best way to do it is probably to improve all the ratings slightly for all the athletes on the home team. The game world. Generally, the professional leagues hold the license to use the names, logos, uniform designs, photographs, and other indicia of all the teams in a league, plus the name and logo of the league itself. You or your publisher will have to negotiate an agreement with the league or governing body to use these symbols in your game. It's best to design the game in such a way that it doesn't depend on having these things unless you're certain that they will be available. An important part of that experience is hearing the announcer's commentary, or play-by-play. The play-by-play announcer describes the action on a moment-by-moment basis. The color commentator, usually a retired coach or player, offers insights into strategy and tactics, as well as background material on the teams or individual athletes. When you need to create commentary for a set of match events, sit down with the programmers and discuss the events to make sure the software can detect them. The presentation layer. The interaction model in sports games will usually be the player controlling an avatar who is an athlete in the match. The camera model should give a clear view of the athletes and where their movements and activities will map neatly onto the machine's input devices. Do not make sports games in the first person. For the user interface, think about what kinds of things the player will want to do at each stage of the game and how best to make them available. Make sure that similar actions in different modes use the same buttons. Most sports games avoid pull-down menus and anything else that resembles the user interface for a computer's desktop. The user interface must be as smooth and intuitive as you can make it. Summary. It's the job of the sports game designer to fit the sport to the machine. Sports game design doesn't require nearly as much raw creativity as designing an adventure game or a role-playing game. Sports game design is a more subtle process that entails endless tuning and tweaking to find the right balance between realism and playability. The material used for this lesson was taken from Chapter 16 of the book Fundamentals of Game Design, 2nd edition, by Ernest Adams. Thanks for listening.